Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Sheldon here, and we're back online looking at another musical instrument auction catalogue. So this particular one is Amati, based in the UK, and they have this double auction coming up which is finishing on the 28th and 29th of May. It's actually the 27th today, so the first day finishes tomorrow, but I've been so busy recently that I've not had a chance to do this video until now. So yeah, first day is finishing tomorrow. So buyer's premium for this auction is 22%. We're just going to blitz through it really quickly and see if there's anything interesting. As always, a link to the catalogue is in the video description, so you don't need to watch this video. You can just have a look at the catalogue yourself, and if you know a lot about musical instruments, then this video might not be of any interest to you. If you don't and you're just curious, then this might be of interest to you. Just to say that this is obviously a UK based auction, so if you're looking to buy from abroad, there might be other charges, import, export, CITES, all of that kind of shipping stuff that adds to it. Other than that, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, turn on notifications, all of that fun stuff. So yeah, like I said, we're just going to blitz through this really quickly, have a look at a few interesting things, see anything which is kind of, you know, got a lot of bids, and just generally just check it out really. So nothing too intense really, and if you do have any kind of thoughts on anything or any questions, feel free to kind of write a message. Right, so anyway, we're starting off with some cellos here. So it's split into 2 days. At some point the catalogue will kind of, it goes through like cellos and violas, I think, and then it does other stuff, and then eventually it will loop again back to cellos, and that'll be the next day of the proceedings. So we're on the stuff finishing on the 28th at the moment, and the 29th will be a bit later. So let's just go to this cello first. So a cello labelled Johann Heinel, and it's here's 1886 on the label. This is actually like really quite curious. This is like a 19th century trade cello, but it has one of these line heads which you get on some of these trade instruments, but really kind of, don't think I've ever seen one before in a cello. This might be the first one that I've seen, so quite curious in that regard. The cello itself, I think, is in fairly kind of good condition. If we look at the condition report here, a few open cracks here, and there's this closed crack on the back. It doesn't look like it's in the sound post area, but it is quite hard to tell sometimes. But if we can zoom in a bit more, we might be able to tell. Yeah, so this crack over here should be okay, but worth probably looking at in person. But yeah, just curious that you just don't tend to see kind of cellos with these line heads. I mean, these were probably just bought in and made externally and then kind of added to the rest of it. But yeah, I quite like these kind of F-holes, like very kind of German kind of moustache kind of looking. So at the moment 230 bid, so nothing kind of too crazy on that. So yeah, fairly interesting. A few other things here. I think there's a few bits in this auction that have been in other sales. This cello labelled William Walker looks kind of familiar. Just to say, actually, this is a very kind of this is their affordable auction, so it's fairly like low value kind of stuff, nothing too crazy. And I think even for an affordable auction, this is perhaps a bit of a lower tier than normal. So we have some other kind of cellos here that looks kind of fairly standard kind of trade stuff. See, only £20 bid on that so far, but when it comes to the actual day of the auction, these prices tend to really kind of shoot up considerably. So this, I'm pretty sure, was in one of the other auctions. Cello body labelled Joseph Hill. Now it's a Hill label. Kind of interesting thing. Very hard to tell from those pictures, to be honest, but I think, yeah, there is the soundboard there. But yeah, curiosity, worth having a look, I think, in person. We've got 3/4, half size. Got a few bows here as well, some of which might be worth looking at. Silver mounted cello bow, branded A Vigneron. See that this has had a considerable head repair there, hence the current value. So, but sometimes these broken bows can be pretty good players if they've been repaired well, and the value, makes them kind of affordable. There's a few other kind of bows here. Interesting bow, this one. Silver and bone mounted viola bow, unbranded there. 750 already bid on this. So, yeah, interesting bow, octagonal stick. It's had some kind of repairs to it, but clearly that's a fairly popular lot. Here's a silver mounted violin bow, branded E Sartre, head detached from the stick there. 220 bid on this. Broken heads, so it's kind of curious. That might do very well, I think, when it comes to the actual auction. It's an interesting looking bow there, worth further inspection, I think. There's a lot of kind of generic stuff in this auction as well, and other things that are probably, worth checking. Here's an interesting, a bone and brass mounted violin bow, branded Dodd. It's a really weird mechanism I've never seen before. I'm not 100% convinced that is original. Bow itself looks quite interesting. 80 bid on that. Like I said, this is the affordable auction, so don't expect anything too insane, other than if a few kind of things have slipped through. Okay, so a silver mounted violin bow, branded illegibly. Picture lens on frog, showing an image of JB Viome. So these interesting lenses that you get on some of these bows around this time. Has this kind of channel for the frog as well that you get on some French bows. So that's popular so far. 750 bid on that as well. Interesting, it's a repaired crack there on the head. So yeah, even with a repaired crack to the head, it's making fairly good money. I think if a bow has been repaired quite well, then even kind of substantial damage like that doesn't seem to matter so much anymore. They are kind of keeping their value, especially the finer bows. So we've got some pretty standard stuff. You've got some probably Brazilian bows here. A few kind of older things as well, like this bone mounted bow. Needs obviously a bit of repair, but there's some curious things in this auction worth having a look at if you're a musician or a collector or something like that. So a few other things here. 400 lots in this auction, so very kind of big auction. We're on to some violas now. Not too many. Looks like some kind of amateur work here. Interesting scroll on that. Got a viola here that's getting a bit more bids on this one. Looks like quite nicely made actually. Also looks like it could be kind of some possibly a good amateur. Viola labelled Arthur E. Shaw. So this is an interesting viola, but the varnish has completely failed and been destroyed there. Bradford 1946. Shame, because quite a nice looking viola otherwise, but definitely needs a lot of attention there. Let's see what else we've got here. We're on to some violins now. Violin labelled Dante and Alfredo Gustala. So current bid 1200. Now I'm pretty sure that this was in a previous auction as being by those gentlemen. So that is kind of curious how things kind of float about. In really good condition. A few closed cracks there. So see the size there, 356 length of back. So There are some kind of speculative things in this auction, but otherwise a lot of funny stuff. This is interesting. I think I saw people posting on Meisternet about this violin labelled Del Guess Who, so someone's having a good joke there. There's a few kind of like, I mean, I have looked through this catalogue a few times. There are a few kind of interesting things that kind of make me kind of look a second time, such as that. But there is a lot of other stuff which I'm just like, it's not too exciting. There's some real kind of generic-y kind of stuff around, some 3/4. It's a real mixed bag, but there are some good things around. See if we can spot anything that's a bit nicer. There's a few kind of unlabelled things here that could need a bit of work, but could be fairly interesting. Pretty kind of various trade instruments at different levels, but some of them are kind of look fairly nice. Let's see what else we got here. And then there's some other stuff which I think is probably as labelled, violin labelled James Leake. You know, there you go, some kind of English, kind of Scottish stuff there, maybe kind of part amateur, half professional. And, you know, stuff like this that once again is, this looks like something straight out of the Heron Allen book, where he was trying to kind of make a Del Gesù type violin and kind of didn't really achieve it, but lots of people ended up kind of copying this book and making similar violins, so that looks something like that. So pretty believable as labelled. Alexander Henderson, New York. So, you know, obviously some big repairs there, but still interesting to see some of this stuff, and I'm sure that will go for more money when it actually goes to auction tomorrow. $350 length of back on that. Let's see what else we got here. Lots of stuff like this. This is actually fairly interesting violin labelled Duncan MacDonald. So yeah, quite nice back on that. I think this has been in one of the other auctions before, Isle of Eve, and I think there's another one by this maker, some in the auction, but very different. So yeah, I quite like this violin actually, so I think that will do a lot better than it currently is. So some standard kind of French stuff here, some German trade kind of bits, some amateur stuff, you know, a real mixture of things, but a good opportunity to get something pretty fairly cheap. Let's see, violin label J. Brown and Son, musical instrument makers Grimsby. See quite a few instruments with this maker's labelling, and they're all slightly odd looking. So, and this one also fits that bill, so this could well be by this family of makers, and they always tend to have this quite dark brown varnish. No idea if they're actually any good as instruments, but definitely curious there. Let's have a look at this violin labelled Carlo Bruno. This to me just looks very much like a standard kind of trade instrument personally, but I could be wrong. In pretty good condition though, so that kind of goes a long way with people, I think. So a few other things here. Let's see what else we got here. A lot of kind of generic kind of trade stuff here. Got a few violins that are getting a bit more money. Kind of interesting back on that, but once again I think that's fairly standard. Interesting stuff. Violin labelled Christianus Fredericus Bauer. Yes, looks like a kind of good either late 18th century, maybe early 19th century German violin there. Label is kind of interesting. So yeah, £50 at the moment. What are the dimensions on that? 353, yeah, it's good size. Kind of quirky looking thing. It's got the front's had a good adventure, but otherwise kind of interesting. The violin here, unlabelled, 210 on this. This is quite a nice looking violin. So I wonder if this is some kind of older French thing or something else. There's a few instruments here in a row that are kind of slightly curious. Curious varnish on that one. That's had a bit of some repair issues there. Violin labelled Thomas Zach, I think. Yeah, another curious looking kind of German-ish kind of thing. It's again not many bids on that. So lots of other kind of stuff like this. Violin labelled Guarnerius. Fairly standard German violin, I think. See what else we got here. Yeah, lots of stuff here. This Dolling, Pear Chef. It's all fairly pace-old. It's just a lot of kind of tradey stuff coming in here, and this kind of trade stuff, kind of Guarneri looking, like nothing too crazy. 3/4. Yes, a lot of kind of standard trade stuff. Then occasionally you get something else which looks a bit more curious and possibly a bit older. So it's definitely some potential for sure. And some other stuff which needs a bit of work here for sure. Violin branded Hopf. We've also got these bundles here of violins which might be worth looking at. Interestingly, this one has bids of £550, so someone must have seen something in here which is kind of sparking some interest. Would be interesting to see in person, but yeah, not sure. This is certainly an interesting looking violin. The one with seems to not have a head. So yeah, someone must have seen something anyway for those bids to have come in. I can't quite see what's going on there, but then I am not the expert. So, and we've got a few more bundles here where I'm sure there's a few interesting things here. Some bow bundles as well. And we're on to books here. I think we're going to just kind of go past these unless there's anything super interesting, which I don't think there is. So definitely a few kind of standard books, nothing kind of outrageous, I don't think. Benjamin Banks book, that's pretty good, and some bundles of books as well. So nothing too crazy. We've got a few cases as well. Nice gorge violin case there as well. Jaeger, Concord, some bow cases there. Some cello flight case. Right, so now I think, yeah, lot 200. We're on to the 29th of May, so we're kind of looping into the next day. So this is stuff finishing on Thursday the 29th. So we've got what's labelled as a Medifino cello there, so kind of budget French there. Looks like it needs some work. So interesting cello here that has quite a lot of bids. 1300 bid. Nice scroll. It looks kind of well made. So once again, someone's clearly seen that. One of the kind of top instruments, I think, personally, in this auction is this cello. This is so cool. It's absolutely mental. Just wacky kind of amateur kind of church bass kind of cello thing. It's pretty crazy. It's a lot of charm, so I like that. Very cool. And that I think will probably go up a bit actually in money by the time the auction ends. A few other cellos here that I think in fairly bad kind of states. Just trying to remember if I've looked at any of this stuff before. Yeah, this I think is like an extremely like low tier cello, which is interesting because you don't see them too many of these either because they don't tend to survive, but very very low quality kind of German work, probably 19th century or so, and a few other things. I think these all need a lot of repair. So we're back into bows again. Got a silver mounted cello bow branded Lamy. It's kind of fairly nice looking bow. Let's see if there's any issues with it here. Fair condition. I expect that will do well as well. So the stuff that's happening on the 28th, I think the money will start jumping up in the morning, and then this stuff the day afterwards it will start kind of picking up. So a few more Brazilian type things, but definitely some opportunities for sure. Little stuff. As I said, just take your time to go through the catalogue and see what you think. So definitely probably better bows in the other section of the catalogue, I think. But still a few interesting silver mounted bows floating about. Some Brock bows as well. On to violas again. So it's interesting, a viola labelled AJ Rope, Plumstead 1923. This looks quite believable from a varnish point of view. I had an AJ Rope violin actually. It had very similar varnish to this, so I could believe that this is an AJ Rope viola. Probably not worth crazy amounts of money in all reality, but yeah, 416, a good modern size. Actually, really quite nice looking viola actually. Quite heavy scooping on the F-holes, so yeah, I think that could be viable actually for someone. Seems in like fairly okay condition as well, so yeah, I think in terms of violas, I think that's yeah, not the worst thing. Like I said, the varnish I think is failing a bit, which is very similar to what happened to this violin that I had before, but interesting. So viola here that's kind of gone up in price quite a lot, and I'm not entirely sure why. It looks to me a very standard trade instrument. Maybe it's in good condition. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. So we're out of violas there. So violin here, unlabelled. Kind of interesting outline. Nice back actually. So it looks fairly decent. Violin labelled Jan Kulik. So in pretty good condition. I said a lot of this stuff very speculative, and expect the prices to jump up. So here we go, another violin labelled Duncan MacDonald, Isle of Eve. So we saw one before. I think the other one was a bit nicer than this one. I have absolutely no reason to doubt that this is probably as labelled, to be honest. And I think I've seen some of these violins before, either in Amati or some other auctions, so I think they're kind of believable. Probably not worth a great amount of money and kind of have a slight amateur vibe to them, but still interesting. Here's a violin that I do really like just because it's absolutely bonkers, and that's my favourite stuff. This violin that is labelled Piero looks absolutely shonky as anything. Pretty curious. I have to say the back, very interesting back, and the varnish actually quite interesting. So, and this choice of wood as well. So yeah, kind of curious, that one. Really odd shape though. It's quite long, kind of long and narrow. It's a bit of a weird one. The scroll I'm not really too keen on, to be honest. Yeah, bonkers, so I like it just from the weirdness kind of point of view. So I've got a few other things here. Stuff like this I think is curious. Violin labelled Ralph Marshall, Cleveland 1898. I mean, like, you know, with F holes like this, wood choice like that, I think, you know, you can almost guarantee it's probably as labelled. It looks like the varnish has been mucked about a bit on that one, but yeah, that kind of stuff, I think it's not too hard to kind of assume that that is as labelled. There's some more kind of standard stuff here, like trade stuff, Zeller, etc. See if there's anything else interesting. Here, a couple of violins here which seem to be very popular. Violin labelled Eugenio Degani. It's kind of Guarneri type thing. I don't really see anything in that myself. It looks fairly generic, but you know, once again, I said I'm not the expert. And violin labelled Raphael and Antonio Galliano. Now, this one, I have to say, actually, the wood on the back of this, that's pretty awesome. I do like that. It's a nice, interesting choice of wood and the varnish. So, yeah, this one I quite like. I like this one a lot more than that other one. So, 550 on that. Let's just actually see what the 358. So it's not too big. So a few other things here. Violin labelled Bruno Di Pilato. Another thing that's kind of Guarneri-esque. 355, that's a good kind of size. Looks in pretty good condition. Once again, I don't know, a lot of this stuff almost seems quite Eastern Europe-y to me, but you know, it can be misleading. More kind of stuff here. Let's see what else we've got. And Schweitzer, Phoebe. Let's have a look at this one. A violin labelled Antonius Stradivarius, branded GB on top block. Let's have a look at the measurements on that. 355. Okay, that's pretty good. Good size. Yeah, interesting looking violin. Slightly different to some of the other stuff that we've seen. Okay, quarter size, Steiner. Some other stuff that looks a little bit ropey here. But we're getting towards the end of the auction now. This I thought was actually fairly interesting example of something in pretty bad condition. It's got a big soundpost crack here, but quite like the workmanship actually. There's something about the workmanship of it, the front and that scroll, really interesting. Yeah, I like the outline, kind of slightly asymmetrical placement of the F holes, but I quite like that. £20 on that. I do really like this kind of scroll, this really quite delicate turn that comes quite far over. You can see it's suffered from a bit of woodworm there, so a lot of stuff going on, but interesting nevertheless. Got a few other bits floating on here. Violin labelled Peter Walmsley, Golden Heart, Piccadilly. It certainly looks like it could be some kind of English thing for sure. It's had some heavy repairs. It's looks like it's inked on purfling, which is consistent with some of these earlier kind of low tier stuff getting made for some of the London shops. So budget way into kind of an 18th century English violin potentially. A few other bits here. Here's another one that's been quite popular. Violin labelled NFVO, more repaired by NFVO Brussels 1855. Yeah, this looks like some kind of be interesting to see the saddle, but it looks like maybe quite a nice perhaps a Mittenwald violin or something like that, like 18th century Mittenwald. A nice looking scroll. in pretty good condition, to be fair. So I think that might go, that might go 2.5, 3, maybe even a bit more on the day. So a few other quirky things like this, which that's also fairly nice violin, kind of a bit slightly odd shape and arching. F holes a little bit funky, but curious enough. We've got a zither table violin. Got some more kind of groupings of violins here as well, so definitely lots of options there. Mandolin, a few other bows here, bundle there, that's 170, so someone's seen something in that. And we've got a few more books kind of going on here, nothing too crazy. Getting towards the end of this auction now. Here's a few interesting books, to be fair. A few things that still don't have any bids. Let's see, we're on to the last page now. Some more cases here. Jaeger. A viola case, branded gorge. It does look like a kind of gorge case. Now this is interesting. A 6-slot bow case, branded MA gorge. I don't think I've ever seen a gorge bow case before, but everything, the looks of this, that colour green, all of the kind of, all the parts, this kind of branding, everything, that looks completely correct. So yeah, I've never seen a gorge case before. Looks like a really nice, solid bow case. So, and obviously a few people agree on that because we're already at 220 on that. So with just under 2 days to go on that bit. So yeah, interesting to see that. So all in all, an interesting auction, not a super high level auction, to be honest, but definitely a few options if you're a collector and you're on a low budget, or if you want to tinker with things, or maybe even a student on a very low budget, you want to experiment a bit. This is probably a good auction for you. So any questions or anything, please let me know. Thanks a lot for watching, really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.